The 2023 campaign has come to an end, and that means that it's time to go over how our team fared, take a look around the league, and all that good stuff before we dive into the offseason, so let's just hop straight into it. First things first, the standings, starting things off with the National League in the East. The Marlins, the Fish, baby, they won the division. Tight race between them, Atlanta, and New York, but the Fish do eke it out. Then in the National League Central, you've got the Cardinals, who pretty easily won that division. 13-game lead on the Cubs, who finished in second place at 80-82. So pretty easy division for the Cardinals to take. Brewers, total fall from grace. They only won 78 games this season, while we were the fourth place team, winning 69 games. Not last, and the best win total you can have, aside from actually, being a good team. Then out west, stop me if you heard this one before, the Dodgers won 100-plus games. They win the division. The Giants finished in second place with 94 wins. In the wild card, you have the Giants, who are going to be hosting the Braves. And then the Mets missed out on the playoffs by 2 total games. Now on the American League side of things, the Rays. The Rays somehow won the American League East. I do not believe they were looking too hot at the All-Star break. If I'm not mistaken, they might have even been under 500. I don't believe that division was looking good for them, but they somehow just barely won that division. They eked out the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Yankees finished 1 game back, and the Blue Jays finished 1.5 games back. While in the American League Central, you had the Guardians, who were a 100-win team. They had an 18-game lead on the Minnesota Twins, but Twins, Tigers, and White Sox were all right around 500. So any of those teams, they could add a piece or two in the offseason, and suddenly they're looking like a legitimate team. While out west in the American League, you had the Mariners. They actually won the division, so they just guarantee their playoff spot. They don't have to play any wild card game. They're just already on to the American League Division Series. While the Angels and Astros were both very solid teams at 90-plus game winners. So the wild card is actually going to be the Angels and the Astros, which makes it even more disappointing for those Yankees and Blue Jays teams that they could not win that division, and they were so close to doing so. Both of them miss out on the playoffs. So if we take a look at what the playoff bracket looks like, there it is right in front of your faces. We will check back in with how the postseason fared later on in the episode. But first, we are going to be going over how our Cincinnati Reds fared this season. So starting things off with the bats, we've got JD Martinez, who was the best bat on the roster, an 881 OPS, 39 doubles, 30 home runs, over 200 hits on the season. I mean, just what else can you ask for from JD Martinez? Very impressive all year long. He will be back, hopefully raking next season as well. Jonathan India put up solid numbers, a 798 OPS, 27 doubles, 21 home runs. Not as much home run pop as he had last season, but he did get on base at a much higher clip than he did the previous year. So really rough showing defensively, though, committed 15 errors, and that's really starting to make me think that looking at that and also his ratings that we are trying to have an elite defense. So maybe ideally when we have the perfect roster set up, that he's probably looking like he could be a DH when Martinez leaves the team. But obviously right now we can't do that because it's not like JD Martinez is a guy who can go and play left field or something. And then Tyler Stevenson actually ended up with a pretty solid season. Can't complain about his numbers. 742 OPS. Definitely not the best, but also much better than he was doing. 27 doubles, 13 home runs, finished the year in a hot streak, had the highest WAR on the team, so we're hoping that he can extend that hot streak into next season and just come out and put up some really solid numbers as our catcher. And then there was Kevin Kiermaier, who just put up an absolutely poor offensive season, but he did have a perfect fielding percentage with 20 outfield assists, and that is what we signed him to do. Be an absolute menace out there in center field, just be out there making it so normal balls that you usually get in are either very close or just holding doubles to be singles, making diving plays, just doing what he does, and that is what he did this season for us. Speaking of defensive players, there's also Taylor Walls, who was a very excellent defensive player. Got on base at a decent clip, though, this year. 358 OBP, a 14% walk rate. Third highest WAR on the ball club. All of his defensive ratings are up into the 80s now. So if he can just hit a little bit next season, watch out. Taylor Walls on breakout alert. Well, unfortunately, Nolan Jones just had a very, very rough full season in the big leagues. Or not even full season, but his first season where he started the year in the big leagues. 606 OPS, 363 ABs. Not great at all. Definitely also had a negative WAR, which is just, insult to injury. Literally because he also missed a big chunk of the second half of the season with a fractured arm. I believe he came back for like 1 or 2 series there at the end, but basically missed the entire second half. And a 6.3 walk rate is brutal. There was also Jorge Mateo, who had a decent streak for like a month on the big league team, but not a great season overall. Joey Votto, he was okay. Only hit against right-handed pitching this season, and he just got hit absolutely hard with that regression hammer. He just... there's nothing else to say. He just got absolutely shafted by regression this year. He is literally only valuable as a guy who can run into a couple home runs because his contact's not good, can't hit at all against lefties, not a good defender. He's just... It's not looking good for him, so he's not going to be back next season. Somebody might sign him in the offseason and then just DFA him and do that thing where he spends a whole year in Double-A for whatever reason. Or if nobody signs him, he'll do the thing where he just sits out the whole year and then he retires after sitting out the year as a 40-year-old in free agency. But most likely, this is what his career numbers will look like at the end of his career. Very solid career, obviously, for the Canadian first baseman. But now moving on to Austin Barnes, our backup catcher. Definitely not a great offensive season. He's just going to be the backup next year, especially since Tyler Stevenson has proven that he is plenty capable enough to be the everyday catcher defensively. Nick Senzel finished the year on a hot streak for us. I definitely like what I see with his ratings. I feel like it was definitely a good choice to send him down to AAA last year and let him go down there and just rake, because he really got a boost to his ratings, and he's looking like he could be a legitimate guy for us now. So, and then even if he's just a utility guy, that positional versatility makes him a very valuable utility guy. Then there was Joe Adell, who started off hot when he came over from the Angels organization. Finished kind of meh on the year, 747 OPS, definitely not the worst. 13 doubles, 6 home runs, and 188 ABs. Very poor 284 OBP, though. 6.4 walk rate, not great at all. Negative WAR. Still only going to be 24 next season, so no reason to panic, but the walk rate is definitely something that needs to improve if he's going to be an everyday player. Well, the guy I am starting to worry about a bit, though, is Jose Barrero. This is 2 straight seasons now where he's not really showing too much. Obviously, it was a bench infielder this season, but still, basically did nothing at any point. There was no point in the season where he was ever on a hot streak, and he looked like he might be able to turn things around. He was just cold the whole year, doing nothing the whole season. Jake Bauers, though, is a guy who I am starting to like quite a bit. I already did like him, and now I'm starting to like him even more. Only got 92 ABs in the big leagues. Didn't really do much for power, but he did have a 361 OBP in his time in the big leagues this season. Obviously was very good in AAA, enough to bump his potential up to a B. And he is the guy who has the potential to run into 20 home runs, maybe even 25 if we're getting a little crazy there. But he is absolutely a guy who is going to be very interesting to see how he performs here in this upcoming season. Then you've got Matt Theis, who didn't perform well in the sim, but when I was using him in the game, he had easy power, just sweet stroke. You made contact, that ball was going a long way. And the idea for him is that he could either, just like Bauers, be the everyday first baseman for us, or he could be a guy who ends up as our backup catcher. I know in real life the Angels are starting to use him more as a catcher down in the minor leagues, having him add that back into his repertoire along with being a corner infielder as well. So, if he just ends up being the backup catcher who can also play multiple positions and is just a solid lefty bench bat, that's a valuable player to have on a ball club. But like I said, he could also end up being the long-term first baseman. We just have a couple different guys who could... It's just going to come down to who really shows themselves as the alpha at first base. Is it going to be Bowers? Is it going to be Theis? Is it going to be Triana down in Double-A? Is it going to be somebody else? Who knows what it could be? It could be somebody who's not even in our system at the moment. But now moving on to the pitching side of things, where Hunter Greene was our best pitcher this season post-trade deadline purge. He had a fine year, nothing too special, not bad either though. Finished the year on a hot streak though, so that is encouraging to see. Definitely looking forward to what he can do in 2024, now that he's had 2 full seasons in the major leagues with full progression and just pitching the whole year through. Definitely exciting to see what he can do from here on out. Same deal with Nick Lodolo. Very similar year numbers-wise to Hunter Greene. Also, going to be very interesting to see what he can do next season now that he's gotten a boost of 2 straight years pitching in the whole season in the major leagues and pitching well. So pretty decent ratings for both these guys now. They could definitely be very, very solid pitchers for us. But now moving on to the rest of the staff, we've got Justin Dunn, who was fine in the bullpen. Nothing too special from him this season. Ryan Weathers, though, I was absolutely impressed with what he did with us since coming over from San Diego. A 2.36 ERA, 3.42 FIP, 68 2/3 innings pitched, around a 2.5 walk per 9. Very solid season for him out of the bullpen. Definitely would like to continue to see him do that. TJ Antone was a guy who had a good ERA, not the best FIP, gave up a bit too many home runs for us. I do still like his stuff though, sinker guy with nasty slurve and slider combo. Then there was Brandon Williamson, who didn't pitch the worst 51 innings he could have in the big leagues, but also not great either. ERA definitely makes it a lot worse because he had a 7 ERA, but the FIP was only 4.84, so definitely not as bad as a 7 ERA you would think. I do like his strikeout rate, but only 51 2/3 innings in the big leagues though, so obviously not going to write him off completely because he came up to the big leagues and was pitching against probably other guys' aces and just, I'm not going to write a guy off for struggling in 51 innings first coming up to the big leagues. Ethan Small was our Rule 5 guy this season. He was pretty not great. I mean, we've got him in the system now though, so we'll see what he can do. Be potential guy, definitely not going to be giving up on him. Probably going to be in AAA next season, though. And then we've got Lucas Sims, who just flat out sucked. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Struck out a bunch of guys, basically walked just as many guys, gave up a ton of runs. I'm going to need a big rebound season from him next year. Anthony Bass did end up putting up okay numbers for us, probably around what I was expecting from him, but I mean, obviously not a guy who's going to turn the season around because you have a consistent reliever in the bullpen. But Seth Elledge was a guy who was actually quite impressive. Only got 17 innings in the big leagues, but was quite impressive in those innings. A fantastic 11 K per 9, and then a 1.5 walks per 9. Very, very solid. Keep that up heading into next season. He could be a legitimate dude in the bullpen for us. Then we've got Zach Godley, who did not finish great. I would say he maybe had like 6 or 7 solid starts in the majors, and then the rest of his starts were just kind of not great. Well, Joey Murray was just flat out awful. I mean, a 10 ERA and 11 games started, that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, you got to give the guy some props, though. He's really committed to the tank, trying to get us a good draft pick, and he successfully has gotten us a good draft pick. So, salute to Joey Murray for that. And then if we take a look at how the Reds overall fared, we were actually the 21st team in runs scored. We scored 650 of those suckers. And then we were 23rd in runs allowed, gave up 731. So obviously a negative run differential, not what you want, but also what would you expect from a bad team. One of the worst power teams as well, 26th in all of the major leagues in home runs. Middle of the pack at OBP, though, at 12, so that's definitely an encouraging sign. That could very easily be jotted up there towards the upper echelon of the league. And then also very good at swiping bags, as you would expect. Second most in all of Major League Baseball, only behind the Kansas City Royals. And then we had the 4th best stolen base efficiency as well, the 6th best fielding percentage, and then we were also tied for 3rd with the most strikeouts among our pitching staff. The Angels were first with Ohtani, and then our guy Tyler Mahle, who we sent to them. So now if we take a look at the league leaders on this season in the National League, the batting average leader, the batting title goes to Ke'Bryan Hayes. JD Martinez just barely got inched out by him. He was in second place, but JD Martinez was the National League's hits leader, the only guy with 200 plus hits in the National League this season. Doubles leader was Nico Horner, tied with Fernando Tatis of the Padres. The home run leader was Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals, who had 46 home runs. The stolen base leader was Starling Marte of the Mets, and then we had John Birdie and Jonathan Villar, two guys we traded away at the deadline who were both in the top 10. The OPS leader was Juan Soto, the only guy with a 4-digit OPS in the National League. And then the WAR leader was Brian Reynolds with an 8 even WAR, and then right behind him was Juan Soto with a 7.9. Take a look at the pitching side of things now. The saves leader was Tyler Duffy of the Colorado Rockies, who had 49 saves. The ERA leader was Joe Musgrove of the Dodgers, who had a 2.21 ERA. And then just an absurd 9 shutouts on the season. 9 complete game shutouts for Joe Musgrove. I don't usually show that stat in these end-of-season league leader things, but I mean, that was just so absurd to me that we had to show it. Strikeout leader, though, was Jacob deGrom of the Mets with 243. The innings leader was Max Fried of the Braves. And then the WAR leader was Brandon Woodruff of the Beer Makers with a 5.5 WAR. Now flipping things over to the American League, the average leader with an absurd 371 batting average was not Mike Trout. That's just the batting average you need to beat Mike Trout. Jesse Winker of the Seattle Mariners, the former Red player. And then the hits leader was Victor Reyes of the Tigers. The doubles leader was Miles Straw of the Cleveland Guardians. The home run leader was Yordan Alvarez of the Astros. The stolen base leader was Nicky Lopez of the Royals. And then the OPS leader was, of course, Jesse Winker with a 1.100 OPS, 4 digits. It was him, and then Mike Trout and Austin Meadows also had 4-digit OPSs in the American League, while the WAR leader, of course, was Mike Trout with a 10.6 WAR, absurd as always. And then on the pitching side of things, their save leader was Emmanuel Clase of the Cleveland Guardians. The ERA leader was Alek Manoah of the Blue Jays with a 2.19. The strikeout leader was Shohei Ohtani with 273 punch-outs for the Angels. And then the innings leader was Barrios, I believe is how you say that. Barrios. I always just say Barrios, but I'm pretty sure it's Barrios of the Blue Jays. And then the WAR leader is Shohei Ohtani with a 7.2 WAR just for pitching. So if we take a look at the awards, staying here with the American League, the MVP and the Cy Young belongs to Shohei Ohtani. Just an absurd season from him. Just look at his pitching numbers. I mean, just incredible. Led the league in strikeouts, which is obviously what they look at a lot for the Cy Young Award in this game. But then he also hit 27 home runs as well. I mean, just how do you compete in the MVP award with a guy like that? The reliever of the year was Emmanuel Clase of the Cleveland Guardians. The rookie of the year was Juan Miranda of the Twins, and then Grayson Rodriguez of the Orioles finished right behind him. And then the Gold Glove catcher, the first in his career, was Adley Rutschman of the Orioles. Back-to-back shortstop Gold Gloves belonged to David Fletcher of the Angels, while in center field it was Byron Buxton, and in right field it was Robbie Grossman of the Detroit Tigers. While the Silver Slugger catcher went to Salvador Perez again. And then the Silver Slugger at DH went to our old friend Mike Moustakas, still with the Guardians, still performing for them, hitting 35 bombs for that Cleveland ball club. And then flip things over to the National League. The MVP was Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals. Very solid year for him, led the league in OPS. Cy Young, deGrom of the Mets. Pretty self-explanatory. It led the league in strikeouts, gets the award. Reliever of the year, Tyler Duffy of the Colorado Rockies. The rookie of the year was our old friend from the Giants series, Elliot Ramos, won rookie of the year. And then a couple of guys who we'll probably be seeing a lot of in this series. Henry Davis of the Pirates finished second place, and then Garrett Mitchell of the Brew Crew was in third place. While the Gold Glove catcher was Travis d'Arnaud, that's back-to-back for him, as well as Matt Olson at first base, back-to-back Gold Gloves. At second base, Colton Wong gets his gold back over at that position, now with the Brewers, obviously. And then in third base, Ke'Bryan Hayes gets the first Gold Glove of his career. That's probably going to be the first of many for him. And then at center field, it was our guy, Kevin Kiermaier, doing what we came to bring him in for, wins the Gold Glove. Yes, sir. But now checking back in with how the postseason went this year in 2023, the Cardinals actually win the World Series in 7 games. They get Cardinals magic on top of their absolutely loaded roster as they beat the Seattle Mariners, who make it all the way to the World Series and then lose in 7 games to just an absolutely stacked Cardinals team. Just a brutal finish if you're that ball club. Also, not great for us that we're in a division with a team as stacked as the Cardinals either. While the postseason awards in the American League, their MVP was Jesse Winker. He continued to hit in the postseason. And then the National League MVP was Tyler O'Neill of the Cardinals. And then the World Series MVP was their shortstop, Trey Turner. So now we can transition into the offseason portion of this episode. We'll start things off by showing the retirements where there was no Hall of Fame inductees, surprise, surprise. But there are a couple notable guys I do want to show though. First up, Mike Minor, our former pitcher, had a decent season with the White Sox but decided to hang up his cleats. Elvis Andrus did not play in 2023 and he retires. Kyle Gibson put up 2 seasons with the Phillies the past 2 years, and pretty decent seasons, but he does retire. Nelson Cruz did not play this year, finishes with 476 home runs in his career. Josh Donaldson put up 2 pathetic seasons with the Yankees, finishes with 269 home runs. David Price did not pitch this season. He hangs him up, as well as Zach Greinke, who also did not pitch this season. Yu Darvish did pitch this year. He had a solid 2022, but just a poor 2023. And then we have Justin Verlander, who had a great 2022 season, sub-3 ERA, and then a 2023 year where he spent the year in the bullpen and they decided to hang him up, so his career comes to an end. So now let's get into the actual fun stuff here for the offseason, what we'll be changing here for our 2024 Season 3 team. So first we're taking a look at the budget. This is what our budget looks like before we make any signings, before we do any arbitration, before we re-sign anybody. Obviously, don't really have any money tied up in anybody. The longest term deal we have to anybody and most money is Jonathan India, and it's like a little over $5 million per year, which is not even really a big contract. And we did make one change to our coaching staff here, as Derek Johnson, our pitching coach, is fired with 1 year left on his deal, and we are replacing him with Justin Romero, a pitching coach who gives us a +3 to K per 9 and walk per 9, and then also a +1 to hit per 9. Gives us -3 in clutch, but I don't really care about that. And then we also decided to keep around David Bell for another year, basically just because I did not want to immediately pay the $8 million for firing him, so we're just going to keep him around for another year, and then we'll make another decision on him when it comes to next offseason. But as far as guys that we did not bring back here in this offseason, we're obviously not going to show every single player throughout the minor leagues that we did or did not sign. These are just the notable ones that I did want to go over and show in the video. So the biggest name of the bunch is probably, or definitely, Joey Votto. We knew this was coming all season long. He is not being brought back. Just not a useful player, as I said when we went over his stats. So Joey Votto not returning. Jorge Mateo was a fun player at home this season, or fun player to have on the roster this season, just did not really perform enough for me to want him back, so he's going to be let walk. Anthony Bass, pretty obvious, only signed him to be a consistent reliever for a year. We can probably get better relievers in free agency this season. Zach Godley, thought he might have a cool late career resurgence possibility, but probably not going to be so, and I'd rather just have our younger guys or other guys we sign as AAA depth for us. Joey Murray, he was just so bad in the big leagues for us that I'm just going to let him walk. I'm sure there will be other guys we can sign in free agency, as there always is. Dylan Maples just wasn't as good as I thought he could be. D potential, not really any point in keeping him around. Then there was Philip Deal with, no pun intended, same deal as Dylan Maples, just D potential. We can probably find better left-handed pitching depth in free agency this season. And then Michael Ciani, see potential outfield prospect. I'm sure we'll find some guys that I like better for the minor leagues in the free agent pool. Even if we wanted to bring back Ciani, if I don't like any of the other guys, we can always do that, because I'm sure there's not going to be a ton of teams trying to get Michael Ciani. And now as far as the guys that we are bringing back this season, the notables are Joe Adell, bringing him back at a 2-year, $2.6 million deal. That's 1.3 per. Pretty self-explanatory. We want him to be a long-term option for us, but we're just not committing to him with any long-term money here. Same sort of thing with Ryan Weathers, $1.2 million over 2 years. That's $600,000 per year. 2 more years of him as just an ultra cheap arm to have, no complaints there. Seth Elledge, a very similar deal to Ryan Weathers, 2 more years of him to a potentially solid bullpen arm that he could be. Have team control on both of these guys for multiple seasons. This is just more securing 2 seasons for these guys at that price. And then, of course, we bring back Jake Bauers on a 1-year deal. We got that B potential bump for him. Excited to see how he performs next year. Jake Fraley also bringing back for a season. Just a good depth option to have in the organization. He's a B potential as well, so might as well bring him back. Alejo Lopez, same sort of thing. Solid defender, decent contact bat, has some speed, switch hitter, good AAA infielder to have on the team. Ronnie Dawson, same thing, might as well bring back as a depth outfielder. Max Schrock, same deal, has some positional versatility, B potential. I do like his ratings, so we're going to be bringing him back for a season as well. Kyle Funkhauser, also returning, going to be starting in AAA, but bullpen depth could eventually make his way onto the big league team this season. And then there was TJ Antone, who we offered $2.5 million over 2 years to. He declined that, and instead gets $1.2 million through arbitration to come back for a season. Lucas Sims gets $3.2 million through arbitration. Nick Senzel gets $2.1 million through arbitration. And then Josh James gets $1.3 million through arbitration. So now for the real fun stuff, diving into free agency, who will be joining our team here for Season 3. So basically the plan is we want to continue to develop our young guys. We don't want to block anybody. We don't want to sign anybody to a long-term deal. We don't want to make it so if we sign somebody that we can't call up Ellie De La Cruz at some point, or somebody like Matt McClain or Austin Hendricks or Jay Allen or any other of the plethora of prospects that we have. But we could also be sneaky competitive this season. So I am looking for guys that we can get on short-term contracts who can help us possibly be competitive, guys who fit into what this roster is doing. And the first thing we went out and did was we got a couple of relievers to improve our bullpen, one of them being adding another lefty to our pen in Andrew Chafin. 1 year, $6.6 million deal for him. He's a 33-year-old left-handed reliever, sinker slider guy, has an incredible, I mean, it cannot be overstated how good of a mustache this guy has. He was Detroit's closer in 2022, put up solid numbers, and then he was just a solid setup guy last year for them. And now he is going to come to our team for a season. And if Lucas Sims struggles as the closer again, Chafin could absolutely be slotted into that role for us. I will not hesitate to take Sims out. If he comes out and has like a really bad 2 weeks, boom, he's out of there. He's like a middle reliever all of a sudden. And then the other reliever we went out and got was Alex Reyes, who we signed to a 2-year deal for $9.6 million. That's 4.8 per. Also a potential closer option. He has lights out stuff. I mean, he is nasty. He's got a hard fastball that can even reach like upper 99. Wipeout slider, like insanely good slider. Absolutely filthy 12-6 curveball. I mean, this guy is filthy. Has some control issues, but I mean, he is filthy. He is the prototypical modern-day reliever. He's been solid in St. Louis's bullpen for them. He stays down the NL Central. He's from New Jersey, which is always a plus for me. We also went out and got Robbie Grossman, who you may have noticed was peppered all throughout the league leaders on a few of those in the American League with the Detroit Tigers, and they also won the Gold Glove in right field last season. We signed him to a 1-year, $10.5 million contract. He could either be a platoon guy for us or an everyday player. Obviously, $10 million is probably a bit too much for a platoon guy, but it is only a one-year deal, so it's not like we're committing to him long-term or anything like that. He also he's not going to be blocking anybody in the organization. If he's bad, I don't have any issues DFAing him or releasing him. And if he's good, then we're probably going to be a good team. He's probably a big part of us being a good year if we have a good year. I mean, he has been fantastic in the sim, been great in Detroit. He's an elite on-base guy, hit some homers, steal some bags. Like I said, won the Gold Glove in right field for some reason last year. Probably going to be playing left field for us because the plan is that we're going to be playing in right field. Brian Anderson, who we signed this offseason as well. 3 years, $27 million. That's about $9 million per. He is signed through his age 33 season for us. Not particularly a need. He's just a guy that when I was looking through free agency, I just kept liking more and more. The more I looked at his ratings, the more I just looked at what we could use him for, what he could be for us. Another elite plate discipline guy, elite clutch as well. Very solid, like all-around contact power, just kind of very steady, definitely capable of hitting like 15, 20 home runs for us. High-level defender at multiple positions, could play right, left, second, third, first. Hasn't put up the best numbers in Miami the past 2 seasons. And I mean, $9 million isn't that much for a guy. It's definitely a little bit of a commitment for 3 years. But also, even if he just turns out to be a guy who's sort of like what DJ LeMahieu was expected to be for the Yankees when they signed him, where they were like, hey, this guy is not going to have an everyday position, but he's probably going to play every day for rest guys. He's going to play right one day, going to play left the next day, going to play second, then going to play third, going to play first. He could absolutely be that for us. For this year, he will probably start out in right field for us, and like I said, can always move him around based on what we need. And we obviously don't want him to block anybody, so if he, like I said, if he turns out to be like a DJ LeMahieu type guy who's just playing a different position every day, that is fine by me. And then the more I looked at this roster, I was like, hey, we want to be competitive this season. We could absolutely add an arm to our rotation for like a 2-3 year deal. And we still have room for like 2 guys to come up and be rookies on our team in the rotation this year. So I'm looking around the free agency pool, and I'm seeing a lot of like mid-80s overall guys with very similar stats they've put up in the sim. German Marquez from the Rockies, solid option, definitely a guy we could go after. Frankie Montes, same sort of deal, very similar player. Blake Snell, similar but a lefty. And then Tyler Glasnow, all guys who I definitely could go out and get. But the more I'm looking at these guys, I'm just like, none of these guys really stand out to me from Tyler Mahle, who the Angels did not bring back and was just also out there just in the mix with these guys. And I was like, hey, might as well go and get the guy who we just traded, we're familiar with. Let's bring him back to Cincinnati. So we get Tyler Mahle for a 2-year deal at $29 million. Obviously, that's a pretty penny there at $14.5 million, but I mean, pitchers are expensive, especially guys who are performers, and he is. We didn't actually lowball him a bit, so we got him for less than he was asking for. And like I said, we're familiar with him. We know that he's consistent. He's been great for us. He's coming off arguably the best season of his career. And we'll get him for his age 29 and age 30 seasons. So boom, once that contract's up, he's gone, and ideally, all of our top-tier pitching prospects are just really ready to take over. We've got a young, consistent staff ready to go when he leaves after 2 seasons. We also went out and got another starter to bring into the organization in Mitch Keller on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He's been a Pirates starter for the past few seasons, got absolutely rocked in the big leagues last year, was okay in 2022, but I mean, he's on a really bad team, still only 27 years old, he's a B potential. He could absolutely be a guy who gets a change of scenery and just starts figuring things out. So that's the idea with him. I like his ratings. I like that he's a B potential, still pretty young. He'll start 2024 in AAA for us, but he could absolutely pitch his way into the big leagues if he comes out on fire, and if we need a guy, say like Logan Allen or somebody, performs really poorly, we could absolutely call up Mitch Keller to replace him. We also made another depth signing of first baseman / corner outfielder Pavin Smith on a 1-year, $920,000 deal. Now, I did not plan on going into free agency and adding another first baseman, corner outfielder type. We have plenty of outfielders and first basemen. But I mean, I looked at his ratings, I saw him out there, and I was like, this guy's too good for me to pass up. I mean, we could just add him to the mix of guys who could compete for first base. He is absolutely a guy who was just too good to pass up. I mean, he was just sitting there. He showed some solid numbers in Arizona last season as a bench bat for them. And if you look at his ratings, he got a pretty big boost to both his contacts and both his powers. So just looking at those ratings, he is absolutely a guy who could come in and just rake for us. So we're just going to see what we can get for him on a sub-$1 million contract for 1 season. And then just in case you didn't think we had enough first baseman, corner outfielder types, we're going to go out and sign a guy who's not a first baseman and then play him at first base because I'm addicted to platoons. In Jordan Luplow. Similar idea with him. 1 year, $2.8 million for him. A little bit more expensive. Another Arizona guy. So like I said, the idea is to move him to first base. And we're going to try to platoon him at first base. He is a guy who can absolutely mash against left-handed pitching. He just can't really hit against right-handed pitching. So the idea is that we're going to platoon either him and Bowers or him and Theis or him and Smith at first base. And ideally, we have a solid platoon at first base. He is going to have a super short leash, though. Like, if he gets off to a slow start to the season, like if we get to May and he's just not hitting, he's gone. He's getting DFA'd. We'll just go straight other guys at first base. But if it works out, we have a serious power threat in the lineup against left-handed pitching. And then we didn't really make any other notable signings that we're going to go over here, but we did think about signing Adalberto Mondesi, and I just wanted to talk about that for a second because he's a guy who just fits our plan with the speed and defense. I just don't think he's really worth it, because he would have wanted a decently big contract, and he's just never really shown anything in his big league career at this point that he's valuable. Like, yeah, he's going to steal some bags, he's going to run into a few homers because he's got a little pop to him, but he's not going to do either of those things consistently at all. And he also plays positions that we just have guys already in our system that I like more than him, that I'm not going to have to pay multi-million dollars to have. So, like, at the end of the day, I'd rather have Taylor Walls at shortstop. At the end of the day, we've got Ellie De La Cruz at third base. We've got other guys down in the minors who I like in the infield. And we can't even do some weird thing where, like, hey, you're a great shortstop, go play center field all of a sudden, because we've got guys in center field that I like too. So I just didn't really think it was worth it to go out and get a guy like him because, like I said, he hasn't really shown that he's worth the money he would be asking. But as far as the free agent signings that I was alerted to around the league for other teams, we're going to start things off here with the Cubs because they probably made the biggest splash in the offseason. Jordan Montgomery, they add to their staff, and the big, tall, lanky lefty from the Yankees. And then they also, I wouldn't say lanky, he's definitely thick to him, but yeah, big, tall, lefty guy, Jordan Montgomery. And then they also add arguably the best player in baseball, probably the best player in baseball, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, what can you say? They just added Shohei Ohtani to their roster, and they're coming off a season where they won 80 games. Now, they did lose Kyle Hendricks from the rotation, but I mean, like, who cares? They added Ohtani and Jordan Montgomery. Kyle Hendricks goes to the Boston Red Sox. And then over on the south side of Chicago, they added Josh Hader, so he is no longer in the NL Central, so he's now going and pitching for the White Sox. And they also get Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to go and play shortstop for them. While the Philadelphia Phillies are taking a guy from the St. Louis Cardinals, they did lose a few pieces this offseason, one of them being Bader, who goes to the Phillies as they finally replace their center field issue. They finally get a guy. They say, hey, we don't have any outfield defense. Let's go get the outfield defense guy. The Cardinals also lose Jack Flaherty to the San Diego Padres this offseason. They lose Jordan Hicks in division to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They give him a big deal to be a starter for them. And then they also add a couple guys, though. They add on a one-year deal, Jacob deGrom. So they lose Flaherty, but they add deGrom on a one-year deal, and then they also add another starter in Taijuan Walker. The Texas Rangers added a few pieces this offseason as well. They pick up Tyler Glasnow to add their rotation. Remember, they signed Aaron Nola in last year's offseason, so they got a couple good pieces now. They could be a sneaky good team. And then they also add Jock Peterson to their lineup to be a big bat who matches against right-handed pitching. And then it wouldn't be an offseason if the Angels weren't out spending money, as they get a couple really solid pieces in Lucas Giolito. They get him from the White Sox, add him to the rotation, and then they also add Matt Chapman to their team as the third baseman. And then Houston also made a pretty big splash. They pick up Julio Urias from the Dodgers to add to the rotation. They get Liam Hendricks, who finally leaves the AL Central to be their closer. They add another great reliever in Seth Lugo to their bullpen. And then they finally have a catcher that's not Martin Maldonado or Jason Castro. They get Travis d'Arnaud, who's coming off 2 Gold Glove seasons with the Braves, and then also is just a very good offensive catcher as well. While the Colorado Rockies, last season, if you remember, they signed Luis Severino to their team. Now they're dipping into the old AL East for another guy in Rafael Devers. Going to the Rockies, they could be an interesting team as well with a roster like that. While Nate Eovaldi is going to the Dodgers, they sign him to a long-term deal. I believe it was at least a few years. And then a trade that happened was San Francisco sent Anthony DeSclafani to Miami in return for outfielder J.J. Bleday. Probably a bit of an overpay, but like I said, things are going to happen. So the Giants get J.J. Bleday. And then, last but not least, the New York Mets, they have signed Frankie Montas to their rotation. I guess he's the guy that you're using to replace Jacob deGrom. Now, of course, there was also the Rule 5 draft where we added Matt McLain and Logan Allen to our 40-man roster to protect them from the Rule 5. We did not take anyone this season, but we did lose a couple guys in the Rule 5 draft. The first one being Yvonne Johnson, the former Georgia Bulldog infielder. He gets picked by the Baltimore Orioles. He has decent ratings. He's never really performed in the minors for us. He was in AA Season 1, AAA last year. Didn't really do anything too impressive, so I'm not really too bothered about losing him. We have plenty of other talent in our system. We also lost TJ Friedel to the Pittsburgh Pirates. I did bring him back this year to be another outfield depth, but like I said, we have a ton of outfield depth. I'm not concerned about losing him. He goes to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then they also go and take one of our catchers in our organization in Matthew Nelson, the former Florida State Seminole. He was in AA for us the past 2 seasons. He's a C potential guy, decent defensive catcher, really can't hit at all. Not really concerned about losing him either. At best, he was a backup catcher. That's really all for the offseason here, so if we take a look at what the Season 3 2024 Cincinnati Reds roster looks like, the 26-man opening day roster, not the most talented. We don't have a star. Our best player overall-wise is Tyler Mahle, but we have a lot of young talent that could absolutely boost themselves up into be very, very good players this year. I really do think that we can be competitive this season. Lots of depth to plug and play as well. Just all around, I'm expecting a fun 2024 season. So if we take a look at what the rotation looks like, 1 to 5, it's going to be Tyler Mahle, Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, Brandon Williamson, and Logan Allen. Hunter Green in the 3-hole and not the 2-hole because I just wanted to break up the monotony of all those lefties in a row, so just have him in the middle there so we're not having 3 straight lefties. And then in the bullpen, we've got Ryan Weathers, Justin Dunn, Alex Reyes, DeAndre Foster, who did make the opening day team, Seth Elledge, TJ Antone, Andrew Chafin, and Lucas Sims is the closer. But like I said, if he struggles, we will not hesitate to rip him out of that spot and either put Chafin or Reyes into that closer role. Well, if we take a look on the bat side of things, the lineup against right-handed pitching, in left field it's Robbie Grossman, second base Jonathan India, catching Tyler Stevenson, DH JD Martinez, right field Brian Anderson, third base Nolan Jones, first base Jake Bowers, shortstop Taylor Walls, and then center field is Kevin Kiermaier. All against left-handed pitching, it's basically the same thing, except the first baseman is hitting 5th, and it's Jordan Luplow. While the main bench pieces for us are the utility man, Nick Senzel. He's going to play a lot of infield for us. He's the main infield guy. He can also play some outfield, obviously. Joe Adell is the fourth outfielder. Jordan Luplow or Jake Bowers, depending on which one's not playing, is the first base platoon guy on the bench. And then our backup catcher is Austin Barnes. Now, obviously, that's what it looks like right now, but things are absolutely going to change as the season progresses. I mean, we are not going to hesitate to call guys up, send guys down, whatever we need to do to put what I think is the best roster available out there for this season. And then just going to run through some guys who have new numbers or new guys who are being assigned numbers for the first time. The first one, Logan Allen, is actually going to be a single-digit pitcher wearing number 4 here in the big leagues. DeAndre Foster wearing number 59 as a bullpen arm. Brian Anderson is keeping his number 15 that he wore with the Marlins, and that means that Nick Senzel is switching to number 3. He wore 13 at Tennessee. And that number is retired here in Cincinnati, so I figured, hey, let's just give him number 3. It's a cool number. And then Jordan Luplow is going to be wearing number 16. Alex Reyes gets number 29. Andrew Chafin gets 43, which I don't think he's worn in his career, but it's close enough to like a bunch of different numbers that he's worn, and it's also just a cool number in my opinion. And then Robbie Grossman wears 36 because he wore that with Minnesota. So that'll pretty much wrap things up here for the offseason and end of regular season update video. The next episode will obviously be the first one for Season 3, 2024. Opening day will be at Great American Ballpark against the Beer Makers. Corbin Burns going for them, Tyler Mahle going for us. Like I said, that'll wrap things up here for this edition of the Cincinnati Reds franchise here on MLB The Show 22. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I am saying, of all the mediocre Chess.com players out there, I'm the most mediocre.